chat box. Welcome, welcome. I see two of you. Can you drop a message, drop something, a thumbs up, anything to let me know that you can? I'm not using the mic. Let me know that you can hear me well, that you can see me well. Just help me out with that while I wait on Alex to come join us. I'll send him the link again. All right, and tell a friend, like the live as you're here. Please, I see two of you. Just give the live a like right now. Greetings and peace. Greetings, sis. Beautiful. Thank you. Greetings, greetings. Welcome in. Just like up the live as you come in. Abantu. Welcome, Abantu. Blessings, halls of Amenti, Ascension Academy. Give thanks. Give thanks. And you can, in the meantime, share the live. Invite ones to come and join us. Waiting on Alex to come on to the live. Hopefully everything goes clear today. I wonder if that is Alex. Nina. Wait. All right, let me try. Oh, it is you. Yay! I was wondering.
Yeah, man.
Greetings. Thank you for joining me, Alex.
Greetings, sis. You can hear me clearly?
Yes, I'm hearing you. Speak up a little bit more.
Hear me clearly now?
Yes, I can hear you clearly and I can see you clearly. Everybody in the chat, please confirm that you can see him clearly and hear him clearly also.
Let's get this closer. Hail, 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 hail.
Okay, you're seeing.
I don't know, but it looked like the feed on your side, like when you're speaking, it seems a bit slow coming. I hope that's not gonna affect the quality of the video.
I hope not. I hope not. I know how YouTube is sometimes, but I hope not. Anyway, let's press on. You can hear me good. I can hear you good. Hopefully, it goes smoothly after this.
Yeah,
Abantu. Abantu say you're his Obeah man link.
and the man,
Okay, so this is a conversation. By the way, just know that you can be very relaxed on this. It's not a TVJ interview, so let your hair down.
but it's like you're breaking up a while ago. But I hope this connection is good enough.
Is everybody in the chat? Are you able to hear us? Is the connection good? Let me ask them. Because if they can hear us and the connection is good for them, but I want you to hear me clearly too.
I'm hearing you good now. Hold on, let me turn up my volume. It's up.
Make sure there is no interference. Really. Turn down the fan. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I've been wanting to have this conversation for a long time now about Obeah, and there has been recent conversation, a lot of recent conversation about Obeah.
Yes.
Recently, you and I, we went to the Obeah conference, the Respelling Obeah conference, and that was very
Hmm.
promising, for the future of Obeah and our spiritual traditions here in Jamaica, right? There has been other conversations happening, of course, with you. You've been a champion for our spiritual traditions and trying to get the Obeah Act repealed. And also, you sent me a video today of what's her name, Dion Jackson Miller,
Yeah, and Jackson Miller.
talking,
Yeah.
right, talking about Halloween and Obeah, which is what we're here to talk about today. Um, and so we'll get into everything: Myal, Obeah, the Act, and yeah, how people are viewing and using our spiritual traditions here in Jamaica today.
Yeah.
So I want to first start by asking you, because it's your first time on my platform, to introduce yourself to the ones who are listening who may not know who you are.
Okay. Well, I am Alex. Right. Alex Minot is my name. But I go by Instagram handle Alex Myal Priest. This is because I am an initiated priest in Jamaica's traditional religion, which is Myal. I Outside of that, I've been a tireless advocate for the rights of indigenous people, especially the first people descendants of the land of Jamaica. I have always put myself out there as a tireless defender of especially water rights, as I said, the land rights, environmental protection, etc. I was one of the main leaders in the protest to reopen the Blue Lagoon, as well as I led an online effort, right, social media advocacy against mining in the Rio Grande. Now, even though the mining continues on the Rio Grande, those miners are illegal miners, and the ones who had their licenses, those licenses were suspended because, of course, the river is at risk. It's in danger. Other than that, of course, we continue to advocate where the Blue Lagoon is concerned because we don't have the original unfettered access to this water body that we usually have. It's a big focus for me because as a priest of Mayal, I am also a priest of the sacred waters of Jamaica. And Blue Lagoon is my living shrine and temple. So I, in a nutshell, you could say that that is summing up my spiritual professional work. Um, Always speaking, always on social media. Outside of that, I have served in several Maroon councils as an advisor for a company. I served as a Minister of Foreign Affairs. And I mean, it's just constant work, especially over the past 10 years, Before all of this, I was a really serious advocate concerning young people's rights to grow and profit from the cannabis, ganja. Yeah, and I was a developer of indigenous strains, and I was a part of a program. Well, piloted a program at the University of the West Indies for the grassroots development of ganja strains that would be suitable for use in Jamaica, especially as a means of income for young people.
Yeah.
So always working, always working.
I don't know if you just answered this question, but I'm gonna ask anyway. What does a Myal priest do? What what are some of the things that you do in terms of, I mean, services that you offer, or maybe what is your role in the community as a Myal priest? No, you're gone. You're gone. I don't see one. I'm hearing you though, but I'm not seeing you. Alex? I don't know either. I'm not seeing you though, but I'm hearing you. So if you all right, you can try that. Let me see what y'all saying in the chat in the meantime. Hail up, Alex. All right. It's what, 12 o'clock in South Africa? Top scientist. Ah, I'm seeing you now.
No?
Yeah, man, I see you now.
All right. So, priest, um, my duties are very broad. So, as a priest, I'm first a preserver of oral tradition, oral history. So, all of the tradition, all of the oral history of Jamaica, of all of the people of Jamaica, I am charged to know them and to and to pass them on to future generations to disseminate. Also, I am also charged to all of the sacred sites in Jamaica and
Mm-hmm.
advocate for their preservation and to work at these sites. I also have the responsibility to provide like herbal medicine, herbal treatment for health for my people who would be in the diaspora, etc. And also, it is my responsibility as well to ancestors of this land, all of those that are indigenous, aboriginal to this land, as well as for those who came, right? I am supposed to honor their memory as well as to money for their remembrance and for their healing and strengthening. I also provide spiritual services for those who need it. So those who are having issues, spiritual issues. Uh, When we say spiritual issues, we don't necessarily know there's a ghost at your house or whatever the case may be. Spiritual can be as simple as failing business. You know, want to do better at anything that you're doing, your profession, school work, etc. Provide spiritual services for those who need it, whatever it may be. And in the priests of the original religion of Jamaica have a kind of sketchy reputation. Many have done work that is considered to be unsavory or dark. But my focus really as a priest is prosperity, health, wealth, happiness. That's my focus because at the end of the day, Obeah has a reputation of harm to other people. But as I always tell that as a part of my personal philosophy, work Obeah on yourself, you know, better, to do better at life overall. So I would say that that's a very simple and basic breakdown of what it is that, are my very many needs. I also maintain the traditions of this house that I'm in. So, uh, that spiritual house in terms of the leadership of the spiritual. It's a lot.
Abante saying that your connection is kind of in and out.
Mm. Why I am up in the hills, you know?
I
So
know.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I can hear you though, you know, it's just choppy
You
in
can
some
hear me, you
parts.
can see me, everything. Hold on a second. It's a bit hot in here. It's raining, but it's so humid. Give me one moment.
Okay, I'll answer this question in the meantime. How did the respelling Obeah conference go? It was good. It was surprisingly good. I didn't expect to see so many people there because in Jamaica, when you mention Obeah, even today, I was on a TikTok live and I mentioned something about Obeah to the other virgin that was on the live with me, that came on and joined the live with me, and he was just he wasn't trying to hear that conversation at all. So, and that is most Jamaicans. So it was pleasantly surprising to see all of the people that were there, even though I saw many familiar faces. So those faces never really surprised me, to be honest. But it was a lot more than I thought it would be. And then Alex did a presentation, which was very good. The host did a presentation, and they had Nana from Sankofa in Irish Town. She was there, and who else was there? Amina Blackwood Meeks was there. And there was an Obeah man there. I don't remember his name. And there was a revivalist bishop there that was there as well. So I felt like the panel was very balanced. You know.
Simon Davis was there. Obeah Priest that was there.
Oh, okay, right.
And
I'm not
incidentally,
familiar with him, even though him face look familiar though, you know. Him look familiar,
yes,
but I don't know his name. But what is
inci-
he, a famous Obeah man or something?
well, I'm not so sure about his reputation, but his spiritual father is a part of it as well. The guy that they mentioned, Runcom.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, I do remember him mentioning him.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Yeah, 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 yeah. He would be my spiritual grand uncle.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, man. So one lineage. But well, my brother, the conference was pretty good. The conference was a surprise for me actually because, as Tifar said, it was well attended, and that was of a surprise because it shows that people no longer have the shame that is normally associated with that kind. The naming of the conference was pretty blatant. Respelling Obeah. So many people were like, Obeah. As a matter of fact, there's a Nigerian brother there, a Igbo brother there, that he was denied a Jamaican visa. So when people say the Obeah Act is no longer in force, right? This
Yes.
guy was denied Jamaican visa because he was going to the Obeah conference. So it's a lot, but we'll get into that later, I'm sure.
Yes, we will. So I wanted to also, if you could define Myalism and Obeah and tell us the difference, because I think the act the Obeah Act defined both of them as the same thing, and you have told us that it is two different, completely different things. So explain what each of them is and the difference. A lot of people don't understand what Obeah is also. Um, so just to give some clarity, because I feel like these spaces are for re-educating our people on Obeah.
Sure.
And that's one of the main things that we have to do in order to get support for the repealing of the act. It's for people to
Right.
understand what it is.
Okay. Plainly, if we're going to decide what each of them are, so No, man. What's happening here? No, it looks like I'm gonna have to change phones or something.
Was
Hold
the
on.
phone acting up? All right.
Hold
Do
on.
you
Hold.
figure it out? I'm here. Abantu says, we're going to need to do this interview in person. I agree. I don't mind that. I should be in Portland soon, so maybe we really can make it happen. And it would be nice if we can do it at the Blue Lagoon. That is one of my favorite places, and that is actually where um, Alex is spiritually responsible for that water body. So it would be great if we can do something there, and then maybe we can record it, and maybe not alive. Maybe I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I know how technology is. It's not always something that you can depend on, and it's not going bad so far. Considering the last live that I did with Nikki Lee, that was about a year ago, a little over a year ago. But it was boy, we had a lot of trouble with that live. So this is not surprising to me. I was expecting it, but I was praying for some clearance. As a Maroon and African traditional practitioner in the UK, it was amazing to see priests from across the diaspora. Yes. I always tell Alex because I myself went searching for a long time for our spiritual culture traditions. And of course, I've always been African centered. So I'm looking for spiritual culture that is African centered. So and and I think it's important to do the things that are in your bloodline and from the place that you were born, from the soil that you were born on. And while you have Santeria in Cuba, we have voodoo um, in Haiti, you have voodoo in Benin, and you have Ifa, you have all of these different spiritual cultures from these different places, and we have a spiritual tradition here in Jamaica as well. It's just that it is not known to many because I was searching for a long time. What is here? I know Obeah, but there's always this negativity around Obeah. Um, how can I tap into this thing that came from my ancestors? You know, how can I get onto that? How can I be initiated? How can I become a devotee to this instead of seeking something that is outside of my culture? If I go to Haiti, I don't speak French, right? I don't know their language. There are so many things within a spiritual culture that is very unique and tied to the people. So, um, it's so important to know the culture, the spiritual culture from your place, from your country, from your people. Alex?
Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
All right, great. I need a new phone. Guys, if there's anybody that wants to donate a phone to the cause, please. Yeah.
While you're here, please, 11 of you are on the live. Please like the live. The more you like it, the more it gets out there,
Share the life, everything.
right? Yeah, it works. The algorithm works with it.
Cool.
Demystifying the juju man is a very important in public's perception of our culture. Absolutely.
All right, so before I before I was rudely interrupted by my phone, you were asking me the difference between what is Myal, what is Obeah, the differences, etc. All
Yes.
right, so essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, the thing that people get wrong, which is what I'm gonna discuss first, is that they think that, and this was one of my issues with the conference actually, they think that the the names that came from African ancestors and are used today, right, mean or automatically qualifies that it is the same practice that we have here today, right? This is not true. So the Igbo will say that, Dibia and Obeah and such are theirs. And then you will also hear the people saying that Myal comes from Mayala, Congo, etc.
Yeah.
These various ancestors did indeed influence what is practiced here as spiritual tradition. And we know all of the etymology and all of those things. We're aware of all of that. However, when those ancestors came to Jamaica, they were
Mm-hmm.
met by people who were here. The idea that the original people of this land died out is a myth, is a total myth, and it is utterly unacceptable because the Spanish did not completely colonize Jamaica, and even the British did not completely colonize Jamaica in their time. As a matter of fact, there are still spaces within Jamaica today where there are cave networks, etc., that the ancestors used that are still undocumented by the various governmental organizations. So we know for a fact, as traditionalists, our oral history tells us that the spiritual traditions that we have here in Jamaica today, their first root is from the Aboriginal ancestors, the people of this land, sprung from this land. Now, the idea that, for example, the people called Maroons, my people, were just some runaway African slaves that somehow knew where to go, what to eat, what to do up in places that they have never seen before, never been to before, and that they ran away into these spaces and created these lovely societies from scratch is also a lie. The British in particular pushed this narrative in order to utilize a legal construct that's called terra nullius, which means empty land. If you come to an empty land, that means that you are the owner of that land. You can legally claim that land.
Mm-hmm.
So coming and saying that the land is empty was legally expedient for the colonizer. This is not to say, though, that the population of those of our ancestors were not lessened because of the oppression of these various colonial forces. That's not to say that we're not discounting the fact that this happened. It did happen.
Yes.
However, the influence that they claim is also a means of hyping up themselves to make it seem like they're so powerful and they could have just come into a place that they were total strangers to and obliterate a people that had been living in one place for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
And when we say living in one place for thousands of years, we must also recognize the fact that Jamaica, if you go into the wild, you hardly find any usable fruit trees, for example, right? These were people that were master agriculturalists, those of our ancestors. They were master herbalists. They knew everything about the land that they were on. And because of that, they were able to master that land. And having mastered that land, they would have known how to evade an enemy, how to fight an enemy, and how to continue to live on independently.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the same thing with their spirituality. Their spirituality was such that they understood the very essence of this land that they lived on. And the very spirits of the land themselves guided them, warned them. They knew that these oppressors were coming. It was prophesied. Okay? And this is also another part of our oral history that we protect and that we preserve. The
Mm-hmm.
the the knowledge is such that the ancestors knew that this time was coming and they prepared. So what we can say is when the Africans came,
Yes.
those of those indigenous ancestors that were still here realized what was happening on their land. They realized that the plantation system, all of those things were coming into effect. And so they went to the plantations very early out and the cattle ranches of the Spanish, etc., etc., and said to these people that they saw, come away from this, escape this, come with us, come live with us, be with us, and be one with us. And that is the story of what actually happened here in Jamaica. When the Africans left and joined them, hold on a second, what is that? What? Uh, Give me a second, please.
All right. We're getting into it. We're getting into the history of it. Alex is a Maroon historian, so he can give you the details about everything, how all of this happened, what when it happened, what time it happened.
Yeah, man, I'm sweaty, I guess, so I was given something to help with that, right? So it's
Of course.
really humid. So essentially, when those Africans came, they were wholeheartedly accepted into the various family groups of the people living here.
Yes.
And because of the reduction of the population, um, the African population eventually grew and somewhat outnumbered the original ancestors. However, we must remember that we who are called Jamaicans now are the offspring of those two people. That is who we are. We are the offspring of those people, right? We are not we are not Africans, right? Because a Nigerian does not go to China and China becomes Nigeria and all of the Chinese people become Nigerians. That doesn't happen. That's nowhere does that happen. But because the original ancestors are to be made to seem foolish, weak, etc. This is the story that is told. This is academic laziness. This is mental laziness, really and truly. And it's just the preservation of a colonial construct, which we need to move past. So now we get to a position where, because wave after wave of African people were being brought by the British, right, in their slave trade. And we must remember that there were at least three different triangular slave trades. The transatlantic is one, but there was also a Pacific slave trade and there is also an American slave trade. Okay? The Pacific happened later on, but the American Indian slave trade or the indigenous slave trade in the Americas ran concurrently with the African slave trade. Okay, so you will find that many of the original acts of the Jamaican Assembly, even the original Obeah Act, which was put in place in 1760, speaks about the regulation of Negroes, mulattoes, and Indians. Most of the acts that you will see in those times speak about Negroes, mulattoes, and Indians. If there were no indigenous people in Jamaica, why would they mention Indians? It's only logical, right? So we know that this narrative can be easily disproven, that Jamaican traditional spirituality does not have any kind of indigenous American root. It's simply not true. So because of the predomination later on of Africans, we have some names that will be identified as African names in terms of spirituality. However, however, within the Arawak language, if we were to look at the word Obeah, right? Within the Lokono Arawak language, which was the language of the people of this land, Jamaica, the word for ancestral spirit is Opia, right? And the word for the priest of the Opia is the Pi, right? So if we were to say, so in today's speaking, like in Guyana, for example, they call that priest a Pi man, right? So we know that when the Africans and the Arawak people came together, they realized that there were deep similarities between their language and their spirituality. And the reason for this is because we know in our original oral history that we have always been connected. History likes to, or we will say his story likes to discredit indigenous people and their achievements. Okay? And when I say this, I'm saying one of the main situations there is the idea that ancient civilizations traded over large distances. Part of the manifest destiny philosophy saying that the pale man and woman are the superior beings is to say that they were the first people to circumnavigate the world. This is not true. So our people have always been connected, and so you have connections of spirituality, language, etc. So when it comes down to the word Myal, we know that yes, there is a Kikongo word, Mayala, that influenced this word. But in the language of the people of the Yucatan, the Yucatec language is the people that are now called Mayan. Maya means priest. Maya also means priest in the Far East, in India, Java, all of those places. The Maya were the priest class. Okay? So when we speak about Mayal, Mayal means in essence spirit and everything to do with spirit and the spiritual intelligence of man. That is really what Mayal means, the spiritual intelligence of human beings and the ability to access the spiritual realms and to communicate with spirit. That is what Mayal is.
That was a weave. You know, you know what a weave is?
Tell me.
What? I learned this from Donald Trump recently. When you ask him a question and then
Yes.
you go all the way around to something else and then you bring it back around. So that's good.
Yes. No, you see,
But
here's the thing.
we could debate and talk about the origin of the meaning and all of that. But that could be a whole other life, to be honest.
But here's the thing about it, right? In this time, in our present and current ways of knowing, we separate subject matters. But the indigenous people, um, life is inseparable from spirituality, and spirituality is inseparable from history.
Yes.
So a people without roots, a tree without roots must die, can't take up any nutrients, etc. So we have to start from the root before we get to the shoot.
Right.
So Mayal is spirit, and the practice of Mayal, we don't want to say Mayalism. We need to cut that out, right?
I
It's
learned that
Mayal.
in school.
Yeah, man, I know,
I learned
and
that
that's what
in
the act
school.
says.
I think it was I think it was the same course at UA with Dr. Naya. With not
Mm-hmm.
he's not Dr. Naya. Jalani Naya. Right.
Yeah, man.
The
Yes.
Rastafari chorus. I think they spoke a little bit in the chorus about Myal, but they call it Myalism.
Myalism. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is even the colonial construct and the restructuring of our terms, right?
Yeah.
Because there's also an issue of intellectual property, but as you said, that's another weave that we won't get into
Yeah.
right now,
And
right?
it's the same thing for Rastafari as well. They put the ism on Rastafari
Yes,
too.
exactly,
You know, Rastafari don't
exactly.
refer to themselves as no Rastafarianism.
Exactly. So this is what I'm saying. The British are very skilled when it comes on to legal wranglings and intellectual property, and
Yes.
essentially taking the intellectual property of indigenous people and retooling it to make it theirs.
Right.
So remember, the British Empire does not think in months and days. It thinks in decades and centuries.
That's
So
something
we
that
sit.
we need to learn.
Exactly. So we sit here and we say, oh, they were discriminating against this thing. But if we are not careful, the same people who used to discriminate against it will come back for it and take it over, which is
And
one of the
monetize
main.
it.
Exactly, which is one of the main reasons why we have to put ourselves forward when it comes on to decriminalization of our spiritual ways, because they did it with ganja. And if we're not careful, they're going to do it with this. You see, you're going to see a lot of people speaking about the abolition of the Obeah Act very soon. Watch and see. It's happening right before our eyes.
Yeah.
And if we sit aside and allow them to do it, you're going to see some different people come and say that their parents and great grandparents were this and that, and it's gone out of our hands if we're not careful.
Yes.
So Mayal is essentially the religious tradition of our people, and Mayal is a spiritual umbrella. And when I say religion, I mean strictly in the legal definition of religion being the organization of spirituality. I don't mean it in terms of the black power and thing where religion is division, speaking about Abrahamic spiritual modalities. So this was our way of community worship. So one of the very important roles of the Myal priest is at the beginning of every year, the community that the priest serves is supposed to make a sacrifice at the head of the major river at that community that provides the community with water. This sacrifice is to ensure that the spirit of the river is appeased so that there is no drought in the community at that time, because we are called to serve the community, especially in an agricultural way. The Mayal priest is the doctor of the community, the doctor of his people, cares for his people. The Mayal priest is also the counselor. He gives advice. He's the psychologist. He or she, because even Nani in her time was the high priestess of the Maya religion of Jamaica, right? So we are healers, we are advisors, we are also supposed to select and consecrate the chief of our various communities. So the Mayal tradition is the umbrella, is the spiritual umbrella. So even Anansi stories, all of those various traditions fall under Mayal. Now, when it comes down to Obeah, right, we know that maybe in the Igbo tradition, Obeah, right, was a standalone thing. But here in Jamaica, because of the displacement and the reorganization within an indigenous construct here in Jamaica, Obeah became individual spiritual practice. So Obeah or Obi is the is the practice of the Myal priest in terms of blending herbs for treatment of ailments, the individual spiritual practice to say if I were to take you and give you a cleanse bath, etc., if I were to do divination on you to tell you what your issues are, the interpretation of dreams, etc., that is what Obeah is. Okay? So Obeah falls under the umbrella of Myal, right? So does Jankono. So everybody sees the end of your masquerade that has been highly diluted and watered down. During the procession of Jankono, the Jankono procession is supposed to cleanse the community. So the Myal priest would be the leader of the Jankono procession. And the Myal priest is supposed to bear a spirit, a host on his head. And that is called the Myal host. Is an
Right.
embodiment of the temple. So before the Jankono began, the Myal priest is supposed to seclude himself with one or two of his apprentices and build the house. And the house is built in a graveyard. And the spirits using um certain you say no, I don't want to say incantations, but certain spiritual work and activity, the spirits of the ancestors are invited to dwell inside of that house for a period of time. Okay? And then the ancestors are then carried around the community. So essentially, so that they can see what the people are doing and that they themselves can work to help to cleanse the community. Right? And one of the Myal priest helpers is supposed to carry around the sacrificial animal, which is supposed to circle the community and receive the negative energy of the community, and then it is sacrificed at the end of this procession. This is the true purpose of Jankuno. But Jankuno has been watered down by JCDC, Ministry of Culture, etc., because of its power. And this is what has always been the situation. The Obeah Act was created not to protect people's Christianity. It was not to protect people from evil, because Mayalists, Obeah people, they don't work evil, they don't work with the devil, because Satan is an Abrahamic construct. Okay, the devil, hell, heaven, all of these things are Abrahamic religious construct, Christian construct that never existed within Myal, within Obi. And so the idea that the Myal priest is working with devils, etc., is totally asinine, because they didn't have that concept. The issue with Myal is that one of the main spiritual tenets of Myal is freedom, individual freedom, community freedom, national freedom. And so the Myal priest in, for example, Taki's uprising is called Taki's uprising, but it's not Taki's uprising. It's just another leg of the Myal wars to take back Jamaica from the evil British Empire. Okay? It was Myal Priest that blessed Taki. Taki was essentially a war chief. He was not, he was like a general. He did not originate that revolutionary war. It was not his idea, right? And this is something within history that people need to understand. It was the uprising of the priests, but the priests are not fighters. So we have a situation now where we hate our traditions because of this act of the Jamaican Assembly, which was just an act of Christian imposition upon our people. Part of our belief system is spiritual sovereignty. We're supposed to be spiritually independent. All nations are supposed to be spiritually independent. And it calls to mind that meme that's very popular on social media. The Chinaman's God looks like him. The Hindus' God looks like him. Bakra's God looks like him. But what about us? So what did they do? What did the British do? The British went into our ancestral caves, our sacred caves, and found a representation of the deities of this land, such as Myal, the deity of the rain, right? And took it to the British Museum, and now they don't want to give it back. Right now, they don't want to give it back. And the Ministry of Culture, the Minister of Culture, Olivia Grange, has probably just written this little letter to the British Museum and has not really created a movement within Jamaica to get back these many sacred artifacts that they took away from us. When you look at these artifacts, Boinayel, especially, Boinayel looks like any Jamaican man, right? With his low hair and his broad nose and thing like that. This is how our people looked, and this is why they took away the representations of the deities of this land so that they could separate us from it. And then they gave us the image of death with their man up on a cross and said that this is God. And so our movement is to remind our people, you are someone, you are a people, you are a nation, not this construct, not this legal construct that was created by the British, but we were something before.
Okay, so just want to make sure everybody is clear on what Myal is and what Obeah is. So Obeah is just a tool within Myal, as is John Canoe, and what else you said?
Myal is the overarching spirituality, is the religion. So just like how you have Christianity, and there are many different branches of Christianity, many
Right,
different denominations. Yes,
right.
yes.
So, what of this? I want to know because a lot of people don't know that um, what happened between the Maroons or the original people of this land and the colonizers was a spiritual war,
Yes,
and also that the man that left here and went, there was a man called Bookman who left here, a Jamaican, left here and went to Haiti, or they sent him to Haiti, right? And he was the one who incited the Haitian Revolution, which was spiritual as well, right? Everybody knows that they use
yes,
spirituality to beat their oppressors, right?
yes,
And it's the same thing here as well with Nani. A lot of the
yes,
stories that they tell about Nani, people say they sound really mystical and all of that, but it's really because she was a Myal woman, she was a Obeah woman, right? So
yes,
she used spirituality to fight against them,
right.
right? So tell us about when the demonizing of our spiritual culture started, and why.
Okay. Um, the modern day demonization of our spirituality would have started at the point of invasion of the British. So we're looking at 1655. But the issue was that up until the end of the first Myal War, which they call the first Maroon War, um, the British did not have a proper hold over Jamaica at all. If a people are in a constant state of warfare, how can they establish a government, etc.? It was not until the first very shaky peace between our people and the British that they were free to start establishing their plantation system, etc. It was never the intention of the British to establish a nation called Jamaica either. It was a commercial enterprise. The plantation system was a commercial enterprise for money making. It was never to arrange a nation of people, which is why Jamaica is in the situation that it's in today. That being said, it was the spiritual principles of our people that caused the war, because when the British tried to invade Haiti, which was called what they call it at the time, Santo Domingo, I think, right? Hispaniola, right? Was what the Spanish called it. When they were trying to invade, and this was William Penn and the guy Venables. I don't, his first name eludes me right now. But an interesting fact, the state in America, USA, called Pennsylvania is named after the William Penn that invaded Jamaica. Just a little fact. So when they were sent by Oliver Cromwell from England to invade Hispaniola, Hispaniola was very stoutly defended by the Spanish, because Hispaniola, or Haiti, as the entire island is originally called, possesses very rich mines of gold and silver, right? And this is what it was all about. They were trying to make money to carry back to their motherland. Okay? So because of that, there were stout walls around the coastlines of Hispaniola, and these were the coasts that could have been easily invaded. The rest of the coastlines were rocky, etc. So the ships were not easy. It wasn't easy for ships to come in there, so they didn't have to fortify those. And William Penn and the General Venables, they said, wow, we can't return to England empty handed. So let's go to Jamaica instead. So they went to Jamaica. Jamaica was very poorly defended. They came to Jamaica. It was very poorly defended because Jamaica did not have easily accessible mines of gold. There were always gold mines in Jamaica, but they were not as easily accessible and as abundant as in Haiti. And so they were so happy that they were able to come in and make some kind of foothold in Jamaica. However, a very little known fact, their invasion of Jamaica was illegal. And so when they returned to England, they were arrested and thrown in the Tower of England, Tower of London, right? Because it was illegal. And the intention was for Cromwell to give Jamaica back to the Spanish. However, they realized just how fertile the land of Jamaica was, and so they decided that they wanted to stay. But what they were not banking on was that long before, under the 1511 laws of Burgos, Queen Isabella, right, had discovered through the missionary Bartolome de las Casas that the people of the land were being very poorly treated. And so the laws of Burgos freed the people in Jamaica. And so what then happened was that indigenous communities were established called palenques, right? And so when those indigenous communities were established, they then had their arrangements or treaties with the Spanish crown and were operating independently. And so those palenques were producing large amounts of agricultural produce, which were being sold to ships going to Peru, Mexico, etc., providing them with cassava bread, etc., that could withstand the long travel. Okay? They didn't really have food back in Europe that could withstand the long travel, but they found out that our ancestors did. Right. So when the British invaded Jamaica or attempted to invade Jamaica, there were at least 5 very powerful, very well defended palenques, or these indigenous communities that were under the rule of their own chiefs and had their own standing armies, etc. And so that is how Jamaica was governed under the Spanish. And so when the British came, and when they got past the very poor Spanish crown defense and they went deeper into Jamaica, they realized something. They were like, hold on, something isn't right here. Other people live here, right? When they got past Spanish town and thing and started to go deeper into the forest. And then our people realized, hold on, who are these new people? And it really it hit home with the invasion force, the land invasion force under a captain named Kempo Sebada. When he bucked up, we called a Negro riding a horse. So he was like, hold on, what's going on here in Jamaica? What is this Negro doing on this horse? And then eventually they bucked up these walled communities, these stockaded communities, and they were like, no man, this is serious. And so when our people realized this, that Jamaica was being invaded, then they started to now fight. And so indigenous forces started to roll out to meet the British the invaders. And so that is when the actual Myal wars began, right? Because there was no such thing as Maroons at the time, and no one ever called themselves Maroons. No one did. So this hype over this name that is just a mispronunciation by the British, really and truly. The name Maroon is coming to the British from the Spanish with a word that they call cimarron, which is actually coming from the Lokono Arawak word cimarwa, which means arrow. Okay? And that was just speaking about our ancestors' ability to defend themselves with the arrow, to hunt with the arrow, and to move swiftly like the arrow. So this war raged on, right? And it went on for 83 years in total. It is commonly said that Nani was fighting for the entire 83 years, but this is not really accurate, because who could have fought in old age, etc. Nani would have come a bit later on, maybe about 30, 40 years later after the beginning of the war, right? And Nani arrived to Jamaica as a young lady. But it appears that Nani was a priestess of an Asafo company from the Akan peoples in what is now called today Ghana. When she came, um, she had her spiritual prowess already, but when she came, she was specially initiated and prepared by priests that were already here. And she was taught the deep secrets of this land. And she grew to love Jamaica very, very much, which is why at the end of the war, she didn't opt to go back to the land of her origin. She decided to stay here because she had made a family here. Nanny was not childless. They made Nanny seem like she was some barren, tough, childless woman. She had a son and a daughter. She had two children. She was happily married. She was living her life. Okay, she was living her life in the place that is today called Nannytown, which is back in the real heights of the Blue Mountains. Closer, well, actually in where they call St. Thomas today. She didn't really start out in what is now called Portland. Started out more south. So the idea behind, and this is why I call it the Myal Wars, because it was Christian imposition. And what people don't know is that the invasion of Jamaica by the British was sponsored by the British Crown and the Anglican Church. Okay? It was the Anglican Church who said, we must go forth and make Christians of the infidels. And for those of the infidels who refuse to accept the religion of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, they must be destroyed and their lands and principalities must be taken from them. So, in essence, the same crusades that were sweeping through Europe and the Holy Land, so-called Holy Land, Israel, wherever, eventually made their way into the Caribbean, into the Americas, into Jamaica. And so it was never all of the so-called slave uprisings and rebellions. They were never uprisings or rebellions, but they were just continuations of the initial war of defense of Jamaica.
All right. So today's Halloween. I didn't even realize this until later today that today was Halloween. So I thought it was really fitting that we have this conversation today.
Hmm.
It is also a Thursday,
Yeah.
and it is also tomorrow is a new moon. So all of this is a perfect time for some spiritual elevation or to a change in perspective then, right? So we know that a lot of people in Jamaica have taken up this culture called Halloween, which is not really ours. And even myself, I found years ago myself participating in it and not really knowing what it was about and why. Um, but a lot of people are getting into it now, and it's surprising. Some people who call themselves Christians, some people who say that they're, holy and all of that, they're participating, their children are participating. But once you mention Obeah, once you mention any kind of African or indigenous spirituality, it's evil and they're afraid. Even today on the live, I was on TikTok live and a virgin was, oh, I'm afraid of them something there. The virgin come on the live and he was like, oh, I'm afraid of them something there. And I'm like, why? Why are we so afraid of ourselves? But we participate in this thing called Halloween, which to my knowledge is a celebration, a day of the dead or a celebration of the dead. So tell me a little bit about what Halloween is and what exactly is it that we are choosing. Well, not we, but them. What are they choosing to participate in? What type of ritual? What is this thing called Halloween?
All right, so straightforward. We know that throughout the year, there are cycles, right? There are spiritual cycles, moon cycles, cycles of changing of magnetism, etc. At this time, at this specific particular time of the year, there is a thinning of the veil that separates the physical reality or the physical plane and the spiritual plane. Now, this is known to all cultures, all cultures, all. Um, but the celebration that is called Halloween or All Hallows Eve, etc., is a celebration of the Celtic um, culture behind this time that that is called Samhain, right? Which is spelled Samhain, but it's pronounced in the Celtic language Samhain, right? This has even trickled down into Christianity, which, especially the Roman Catholics. And it must be said about the Roman Catholics that the Roman Catholics are some of the most powerful necromancers in the world. The, the, the Catholics practice the keeping and maintaining of the bones of saints, elevated dead people, ancestors whom did great things in their lifetime, who were greatly attached to the Christian religion or whatever the case may be. They keep the bones of those ancestors and they venerate those ancestors. They take them out year after year, clean them up, do all kinds of ceremonies and things, speak to them. And the fact of the matter is that this cult of the dead or society of the dead exists throughout almost every culture. And so the Catholics, everybody celebrate this time because they, like all other spiritual cultures, know that at this time there is a thinning of this veil. And then because the veil is thin, they are better able to cross over into this environment and walk among the living. Because usually, for the spirits of the ancestors, it is very difficult, very painful in some cases, for them to come into this physical reality because this physical reality is very dense, right? And so there is only one vehicle to make the physical reality comfortable, and that is this body, this shell. And so the Catholics and all other necromantic traditions also know that the essence of the dead lingers in the bones after death, right? This is just the way that it is. We did not create it. This is how the Creator created it. And they continue to be attached to their bones. So we will see that even in Haiti, now is called Fet Gede, right? Amongst our cousins, our Maya cousins, our Aztec cousins in the Yucatan, place called Mexico now, you will find Dia de los Muertos, right? Which is just it in Spanish. Okay? So we here in Jamaica are also supposed to celebrate this time, but in our own modality, right? This Halloween trick or treating thing is not our way, but the elements of it are still relevant. So, for example, the candy and those things, these are offerings to particular spirits, especially forest spirits. It is a celebration of spirituality overall because all spirits have an easier time to interact with the physical plane, but in particular the spirits of ancestors, right? So even we in our spiritual house, we maintain this tradition, and we will be doing something for it at the time, at the proper time, right? And the proper time of celebration. So for those who want to remember their ancestors at the right time during this time would be midnight tomorrow, right? Crossing over into the 2nd of November. This, at the point of the new moon, the energy of the new moon at that time, the magnetism of the new moon at that time is actually what physically thins that magnetic veil, that electric veil that is between the living and the dead.
So, what do you suggest we do during this time? What do you suggest we do, and how can we? Because I would love for us to have our own celebration of ancestors every year, a day when we celebrate our ancestors. I think I think November 2 is an appropriate date. I think it's a good date, right? But how can we start that? And before an annual event, or we can all here, pledge that we're going to do something to honor our ancestors tomorrow into the 2nd of November. But what can we do? What do we do to honor our ancestors? What do we do to reverence them? Um, and how can we continue and create something annual?
Okay. Well, one of the most simple things that we can do is to, at midnight, pour libations while on the earth, on the bare ground, not on the concrete, not on the tile inside of your house. Go outside. Barefooted is good, right? And to pour libations, this can be as simple as water. This can be sugar and water. and it can be high proof or overproof alcohol. The very best would be our white rum, right? And whilst pouring the libation gently on the soil, we can call the names of our ancestors that we know. And once we've exhausted the names of the ancestors that we know, we can also mention those who we don't know, right? This is the best way to remember. Those who keep an ancestral altar, it would be good to cook some food. Like if you know that, let's say, your grandmother passed and you remember her with an altar, and she used to like curry chicken, for example, or oxtail, you can cook this dish without salt. However, that she preferred it just without salt, and place it upon this altar and call her name, remember her. Is also good if there can be a gathering. If you're by yourself, fine. But if more than one person can come together at that time, it is good because it encourages the spirit to know that they are still remembered, they are still loved. A good movie, even though it would seem very trivial and silly, is Coco. That I think is a Disney movie, it's an animated movie, and it
I heard about it, but I haven't seen it.
you should endeavor to see it because it is centered around Dia de los Muertos in Mexico, and you will see the entire process that they go through to remember their ancestors at that time. And one of the overarching spiritual principles that is spoken about very extensively or is treated with that movie is the fact that if you don't remember your ancestors, if you don't call upon them, especially at this time, they will fade away, right? And even in Haitian voodoo, there is this concept: if the ancestor is left for too long, left forgotten, they will eventually fade away. So these are some of the very simple things that you can do.
Okay. How do you think we can get our people to, apart from these conversations, and these conversations are important and conferences are important, but how can we get our people to change their mindset towards our spiritual traditions?
I think that it rests very heavily in the hands of the practitioners, right? I think that it is very important for the practitioners of our spiritual traditions to highlight the positives of our traditions, to highlight the healing, to highlight the illustrious history, to highlight the value and the depth of our spiritual traditions. I heard something that was quite shocking for me at the conference. I won't say who said it, but one of the major parties of the conference went up on the stage and said that they wanted to study Obeah and the traditions of Jamaica, so they know that they had to leave Jamaica in order to do that. I was, my mind was blown. I was shocked out of my mind to really hear that. And it's no disrespect or offense being offered to the person who said it, but I realize that the Black Power movement, the Pan Africanist movement that has swept the world, especially the Western world, has infected our people both positively and negatively in thinking that our spiritual traditions here have no value and that there is nothing to be found here. And it has everything to do also with intellectual laziness because we know that our culture and our spiritual traditions have been adulterated somewhat. But if one was intrepid and decided to travel around Jamaica and sit with all the practitioners that you can find, you'll be able to piece together the original way, which is what my work has been in all this time. For 10 years, I've dedicated myself to this, and I have received various levels of initiation from great practitioners that continue to maintain the tradition here. So it still exists. So I think that it's also very important that the marketing that has been put into the Pan Africanist agenda be applied to our traditions as well. I think that just as how Haiti has been highlighted and fancy videos and you know all of the things going down into these various festivals and people with high quality cameras and drones and etc. I think that this needs to be put into Jamaican traditional spirituality right here at home. And it starts first with the abolition of the Obeah Act. It's very important because I think it was Bertrand Aristide in Haiti that decriminalized voodoo, right? Because of course there were laws there against their tradition as well. Once that was done, there was a flooding of funding. There was a flooding of marketing that entered Haiti and centered around the various, because they have many beautiful festivals. They have a festival at the Plan du Nord where they, I mean, no offense, I am part Haitian too, so it's no offense to my people, but they kind of splash around in this mud pit and thing, but with arresting visuals, right? Splashing around in this sacred mud pit was made to look amazing, was made to look majestic. There's a sacred waterfall that they also attend to, right? That you know, it's a very majestic waterfall. It's many times larger than Dunn's River, and it's very majestic. And when they go there, the visuals that are created with high
I
quality
know
cameras.
exactly which one you're talking about.
Yes, yes, it's done in the summertime, right?
Okay.
I don't remember the name of the festival right now. But I mean, their traditions are meant to look so beautiful and so amazing. We need that here. You know, we need people who have passion to do this.
Well, yeah, there you go. We need people who actually care about it to actually to do that. But we need our own festivals. So we need ones like you and others to spearhead these, create these festivals, create these spaces where people will want to be at. So
Yes,
even this November too, 2nd of November can be a date for a future festival. You
yes,
understand? So, but
yes,
it's very important, as you said, that we get the Obeah Act repealed because we cannot do these things when there is a law against this practice. There's a law
precisely,
against our spiritual traditions. It's
precisely.
impossible for us to do it with that. But I also think it's very important what you mentioned about practitioners. Again, I want to go back to that because I feel like a lot of the negativity around Obeah is stemming from how irresponsible a lot of the practitioners are with practicing Obeah. And, you know, people see it as something that people use to harm others and harm each other, not really seeing the positive side of it. And also, I think it's important that as is done in other spiritual traditions, that all information is not accessible to everyone, right? And so certain things you need to be initiated at a certain level to be exposed to certain things, and you need to go through a process of initiation where you understand, you you do a whole course on morals, so you know the good and the bad, what to do, what not to do, good practices, bad practices, right? Because that's true. At the end of the day, we're human and we all have a side of us. We have potential to do evil, within all of us, right? So it's important that when you're given knowledge that gives you a lot of power, that you understand the responsibility of that, and you know how to behave within that, you know how to treat others within that, right? So I think that's so important to for practitioners or Jamaican practitioners. I think most of them, and if you see some on TikTok sometimes talking about the practice, how irresponsible they sound, some of the things that come out of their mouth. Even for example, um, what's his name? You spoke about him, L.A. Lewis, what he did at that time, you were good to call him out on that, because those things give Obeah and our spiritual traditions bad names when they do things like come out he's in the middle of a cemetery with a skull talking about him going to do something to the DPP. That's crazy. That's irresponsible. You can't do things like that. You understand? So
Totally, totally.
what's your take on that, on how practitioners should behave? If is there a code within Obeah and within Myal and our spiritual traditions?
Yeah, there has always been a code, and the thing is that we, because our ancestors didn't write anything down, it was not a written tradition. It is also very important to know the stories of our ancestors. So, for example, if you read the Bible, you will see that the ethics of the Bible, or the ethics of Christianity or Abrahamic religion, are born out through stories. So when it comes down to ethics, I always call upon the story of Three Finger Jack, Jack Mansang. He was known to never hurt a woman. He was known to never hurt a child. He was known to never, in his fighting, never destroy houses, unless of course it was the houses of the invaders. He would never cut fruit trees, etc. They never went about their fighting a certain way. And so there, we know that through these oral histories and these traditions, that our ethics are born out in them. Also very important would be the study of Anansi stories as a tradition. These stories also bring out the various levels of our spiritual ethics. So Anansi is a trickster spirit, right? Coming from the Akan aspect of the Africans who came. If you read or if you study Anansi stories or Anansi traditions, you will find that it's as if Anansi is on a constant journey of discovery. This is because Anansi was the African that had come to a new land. And Anansi was being guided by the other spirits of this land in how to behave. So one very important story is when Anansi was, it was after a hurricane. Anansi had never experienced a hurricane before. Hurricanes don't affect Africa. Hurricanes are rather born off the coast of West Africa and make their way over here traditionally. So after the hurricane, Anansi loved him belly. So what? So Anansi was going around trying to find food, and Anansi looked across, and this is how we also know that Jamaica is not an island, but rather a chain of islands. Anansi looked across the water and saw a small island, and on that island there were abundant fruit trees, etc. But Anansi could not swim. River Mama, or the water spirit, the mermaid, came up out of the water and said, I can help you cross, but I only help my people, right? I only help my family. And Anansi said, I am your cousin. right? I am your cousin, so please help me. And so, because of that, River Mama carried Anansi over on her back to access the food on the island. So this shows the importance of kinship and helping our people, helping each other, loving each other, creating bonds, even though we may not be related by blood. There is a spiritual current that draws us together, that keeps us together. And so it is, and I would urge anybody who is interested in this work that if you find it within yourself to want to invest in the work of really compiling our traditions for the next generation, you can contact me. You can reach out to Sister Tifara. She has a straight line to me, and she and I work together in a lot of cases. And let's come together because our elders are going, right? Let's come together and rebuild this thing because it is a beautiful thing and it is purely Jamaican. And so the push now for Jamaica to become a sovereign nation, the push for Jamaica to become a republic is Nani's vision. That is what Nani was fighting for. Nani wasn't fighting for our people to be stuck up in the hills, right? Our people didn't originally just live in the hills alone. As a matter of fact, the Blue Mountains was the spiritual fortress of Jamaica. This is where the traditions were supposed to be kept spiritually. But most people live down on the plains where the fertile lands are. Okay? So before all our elders go, if we want to see this thing legalized and to have ethics, let us come together and study with at the feet of the elders that are left. Let us come together and force Institute of Jamaica, all these various places, the National Library and thing, to give up their artifacts that they have, to give up their records that they have, so to be studied and scrutinized by us as a people, because we cannot have a Republic Jamaica without a sovereign identity. How is it that we're going to say that Jamaica is a sovereign nation, but we're going to go outside of Jamaica for our identity? Our people lack morals because they lack knowledge of self. This is the reason why we feel that Obeah is a tool to do what we feel like doing. Because we lack knowledge of self. And as you said, because we lack the knowledge of the morals which are born out in our oral traditions. This is our Bible, this is our liturgy. Right? So one cocoa full basket, all of these various statements that you remember Granny and Grandpa saying, this is our liturgy. This is our Bible. And so we need to study these things again, which is why I said to Amina Blackwood Meeks that I was very happy to see her, because she's known as a storyteller. And so she has a responsibility as a Myal woman. She might not dance like me and, serve the spirits like me, but she's still a Myal woman because she has preserved the traditions and the stories of our ancestors. And so we all have a responsibilities to come together now to ensure that when the Obeah Act is destroyed, is abolished, that there are ethics within the practice, as you said, guided by the traditions of our ancestors.
Ashe. So I agree with all that you said, and I have always been um, a believer in Obeah being a tool for protection, as our ancestors used it for protection and for war. So we really should be trying to learn this tool, so we can have it, because we're still at war. We're still at war. So we need to take up our best tool and make sure that we know it. right? But the ethics part is important. Our people seriously lack ethics, and so that's something that we need to work on individually. I always tell, you know, the ones who subscribe that we have to work on ourselves individually and work on our morals and try to be higher beings within ourselves. How do you think people? Because I was talking earlier on the live when you went out for a little bit. I was saying that for me, when I was coming into myself and learning more about um, our spiritual cultures, mainly African, because that's just where I would look, you know um, because I always thought of myself before I always thought of myself as an African. I really didn't think about until recent times about um, my indigenous ancestry, right? So I was always looking all over the place and taking from this culture and taking from that culture. But one day I was just like, wait a minute, there must be something here. You can't tell me that Jamaica don't have something here. There must be something here that I can learn, something that I can pull from, something I can become a devotee of or initiated in. There, it must be here. I don't think I have to look further than here, right? And I know that there are many people like me because even ancestral voices that had you on their program the other day, I found them, in search of something, and I was searching all over the place. So I know that there are many other people who follow pages like ancestral voices as well, that's looking, and we end up in, as I was saying earlier, we end up going to places where the culture isn't ours. We'd have to go to Haiti. Haiti isn't our culture. We don't speak their language. There's so much of their spiritual culture that we probably cannot relate to. Same for Santeria. We can't relate to everything within that, right? So what about what is here? Our root, from our root, what can we learn? So where do we go if somebody is interested in Myal now? How does one become a devotee of Myal? How does one um, become initiated if they want to go that path? What is the path? If, okay, I want to become a priestess of Myal, a priest of Myal. I want to become a devotee. I want, and what does it look like? What does the life of a Myal devotee look like? What do they do?
Okay, well, I mean, anyone that will encounter this live program after, for example, is free to contact me, right? Alex Myal Priest on pretty much all platforms. My Facebook got I'm having an issue with Facebook, but Instagram and TikTok, you can find me there, Alex Myal Priest. And I am here to guide. It's my duty. And the moment at which I was initiated officially as a priest, which was last year, August, the 12th of August, I became, I don't want to use the word burdened, but I shouldered a heavy weight, which would be for the guidance of the people, of my people here in Jamaica. And so I make myself available to anyone that has the interest in that tradition, in our original tradition. I do offer classes. If you want to learn, I can teach you individually and I can initiate you as well. The path of priesthood, on the other hand, is a very testing path and will take years of devotion. before you can say that I am ready to be a priest. Because, as you mentioned, even just the side of ethics is very difficult for our people. Very, very difficult for our people. For whatever reason, Jamaican people have decided that they will become the masters of immorality in this time, which was not the case before. Our people used to be paragons of virtue when they were guided by the original spiritual traditions. The deeper they got into Christianity is the worse it got. As a matter of fact, evangelical Christianity and the process of Christianization of our people actually did not start until 1840. And so we've been in a steady decline morally since that point. And after accepting Christianity wholeheartedly, we stopped defending each other. We stopped defending our land. We stopped fighting for what was right. So, for those who are interested in getting back to the original ways of spirituality in Jamaica, feel free to reach out to me. I am here. I will say this though. I am, as a priest, as a personal choice, it has nothing to do with either the spiritual house that I'm a part of and initiated into, which is over 300 years old. This is my personal choice. I work mainly with women in this time, and there's a reason for this. The reason is that women have been systematically targeted by the Christian patriarchal system, and also the new wave of immorality that is sweeping Jamaica at this time focuses on women. In other words, we see now where women are being told, and it came up the other day, I think it was Lisa Hanna that was talking about it, that certain dancehall artists are saying them no want a shy girl, them no want a shy, them want the girl who are out, right? And so we know that the music industry is guided by particular hands, and we know that the hands that guide the music industry serve a particular superstructure. I'll not call them out here because I don't want this to get banned. Because if I mention them, this video will get banned. Right?
It sure will.
Yeah,
It
man.
sure will. This is their platform.
Yeah, man. So the superstructure that governs the music industry, which has swept up Jamaica by storm, is clearly targeting women. And one particular extremely popular dancehall artist, and you mentioned it, I think it was week before last, I think you spoke about it. This guy was coming out and telling women what to do, what to put them out and what to put them hand on and all of these things, and how to dress and how to react and how to behave themselves out on the road or in the dance hall. And now that he has taken up his other kind of person, he's saying that not everyone wants to be like what he was teaching our women to be. And what is the reason for this? This is because they know that the bloodline that birthed Nanny, right? The bloodline that birthed Mary C. Cole, the bloodline that birthed Cuba Cornwallis, all of these great women, healers, mothers, you know, pioneers, continues to run in the veins of us today. And so, because of that, they don't want the rebirth of the great woman. I was, you know, there's a very particular sister whom I have a lot of respect for, and her name is Vicky Dillard, and she speaks very deeply about the Sibyls. And the Sibyls were the original priestesses of the world. And it's very important to understand something. indigenous political structures, indigenous social structures, indigenous spiritual structures are matrilineal, not necessarily matriarchal. Matriarchal means only owned and governed by women. But matrilineal means that it is passed along, the spiritual vein is passed through the mother side. And this is how it has always been in Jamaica. Okay? So my mother's side, from my mother's side, even though my father's side, of course, is also deeply spiritual, etc. There are a lot of priests on my father's side and lineage, but it was through my mother's side that I inherited very deeply, especially the ability to dream, the ability to remember the names of herbs, etc., the ability to remember oral history, etc. Land is also normally passed through the woman, and through the matriline. So for me, because of the matrilineal clan that I grew up in on my mother's side, I even bear my mother's surname, and this was a requirement of my family. So even though the legal structure is not there today, and you inherit your father's surname, etc., my mother did a deed poll on my name to ensure that that tradition was honored. So I bear my mother's surname. And this will continue to pass through my bloodline. And so my focus is mainly on women. The healing of women has always been a passion for me. My mother, when she was alive, she suffered with fibroids, etc. And at that time, my knowledge was not so great. So at that time, I did not know what to do. It was a constant source of pain for me. And so I dedicated myself to learn the herbal modalities, etc., to heal the womb, to heal the woman, etc. And so, because of this, and because I know that I am an inheritor, even though I'm a male, I'm an inheritor of that ancient feminine priesthood. I know that as a priest, it is my duty now to try to guide women back to sacredness. So, I don't have a problem with men, really and truly. And I would hope and wish and pray that my brothers would rise up and come out of the mundane, come out of the spiritual muck, etc. But my guidance from spirit, my instruction from spirit is to work mainly with women, because I grew up in a matriarchal household, not a matrilineal household. My grandmother was like the supreme matriarch of our family. Right? There's even a title within my clan, my mother's clan, that goes to, or that is vested, that the that so just like how in the United States you have Big Mama, right? So that was my grandmother, right? And so she had that title, and it is something that I know is present in many other families. I know that it is present in many other clans. And so that is my calling, my personal calling. And so because of that, I encourage women to also contact me. I know that there have been, and this is a major problem too, many of our male spiritual practitioners, they take they take sex as payment, right? And they insist in many cases, and this is a part of the lack of ethics that follow, that plague our spiritual tradition here in Jamaica, where they will say you can't get treatment if you don't run the something for me, right? And so this is another thing that I am doing my best to change. Not because I'm a man, not because I'm a priest means that I'm going to run you down for your front, right? And I want women to be comfortable, to seek guidance, to seek healing from priests, from male practitioners, because not all of us are like that.
Very good. I appreciate that. I'm sure many other women will appreciate that as well. We're too transactional with sex, and yeah, we don't have a lot of sexual discipline, but we hear it come out in our music. You know, that's all we sing about in our music: sex and our body parts and so on. And surprisingly, we don't. Well, not surprisingly, they don't really push a culture of family, and so it's all about sex, transactional sex. Um, before last question I want to ask you before we go into asking any questions. If anybody have any questions, if you have any questions, you can just put it in the chat box now. If you have any questions for Alex, and so I have one final question, and that is, how do we? What can we do to support the repealing of the Obeah Act? What can we do now? What can we do today? What can we do tomorrow?
Okay, so essentially, I think that it is very important that if you have an interest in the traditional spirituality and the repeal of this oppressive act, that anyone who has that interest can also feel free to get in touch with me. Um, there is now a network which, even when I started my work, I had heard whispers about people, academics in particular, that had that interest and wanted to get that done. Now I can say happily that I am firmly entrenched or firmly with that network of people, and we want that network to grow. So if you feel led to become a part of this movement, you can reach out to me and I can provide guidance of who to contact. Also, if you feel led to help financially or any other kind of resource based aid, we need it. We very much need it, because right now, even with the effort of repealing the Obeah Act, it will be very important to show the fullness of this spiritual tradition. And so it will take not just to walk up and down with placards and say, repeal the Obeah Act, or to jump up on social media and say, this must be done. But we need to also start to come out with information. We need to start to come out with an educational campaign. And so we definitely need aid and assistance with that educational campaign, because you're always going to hear, oh, but many things say, oh, they are wickedness and are evil. So we need to change the image of our spiritual tradition in order to ensure that when the questions come at us, we have something positive to show and to reply with. And so resources cannot be too much. We need to be able to get out there into the field, to go to the old practitioners and our living libraries and dictionaries and say to them, listen, man, see some groceries here and things, because a lot of them are living in poverty. A lot of them are living in lack. So we need to be able to go to them and say, you're appreciated. Don't worry about it. We have your back. We love you. Feel free to share, because many of them won't share because they think that people hate them. Right? So this has also been a big issue. We need to be able to travel around the island to do this. So it's a multi-pronged approach. So if you're a painter, feel free to paint something about our traditions. And if you don't know what to paint, reach out to me and I can tell you. You a poet? You want to write poetry about our traditions but don't know what to write? Reach out to me and I will tell you. Right? And there is space for every kind of contribution to this movement. We need it. Just like any other movement, we can't be one track minded. We need all hands on deck.
Yep, we certainly do. We certainly do. Support counts from everybody. So, who is here, who is in the diaspora, whatever you can do to help with this act being repealed, please offer your support. Um, you can follow Alex on Instagram. I think it's alex.myalpriest, right? If you want
Yeah,
to reach out to him to get more information about how you can get involved, or you can reach out to me directly and I'll get you to him directly. So I don't see any questions. Now is the time. If you have any questions to ask, I think it's been a good live so far, right? We didn't have any interruptions except in the beginning, so I'm happy. I'm happy with this live. They did us good. And yes, if you are here and you haven't liked the video yet, please give it a like. Same way, we're almost finished, but we still want it to get out there after this.
it's one thing I can tell you though. You see, if we as human beings had the persistence of nature, how do dogs bark so long at that volume and don't get hoarse? Right? There's this cricket somewhere around here now that has started to buzz in my background. Like nature persistent, boy. That I can tell you. We need to, and that's one thing too in Myal, because our spirituality is very nature based. We learn from nature, So let's take some of these lessons, persistence.
Well, I'm not bothered by the crickets in your background at all, so it's okay. So I don't see any questions coming in from anyone. That's unfortunate because I don't know when we're going to be on live again with Alex. So it would be here we go. There is one. Where do
Zinzi,
we
Zinzi
start?
be more
A basic foundation.
Zinzi, be a bit more specific. Your question is a bit vague. What do you mean when it?
More does. Is that your relative?
I guess she is. I mean, it's someone I know. She's a friend of mine. She's actually an archaeologist. Very very good person to know. Very very good person to know. And she
Nice.
she has had she has had her own challenges because the government is running their highway through a place called Irwin in St. James, and they ran it right through her family land and through her family
I
plot.
saw her post. I saw
Yeah,
it.
man. Yeah, man. That's her. And this is another thing too: the lack of honoring of our ancestors, of our grave sites, all of these things. But Zinzi, if you're speaking about like advocacy and that sort of thing, I think you are uniquely placed as an archaeologist, as someone who is doing a lot of extensive work in the northern part of America. I think that where you are concerned, one of the main issues that I am having as a priest personally is, for example, the University of the West Indies in their archaeological department has many of our ancestors' bones in some cardboard boxes, etc. And termites are eating away at these boxes, etc. And they won't give them up. The Institute of Jamaica has many artifacts and bones as well. I wish that I could receive some help in terms of really pushing the University of the West Indies to give us our ancestral bones. So repatriation, as you said, of our bones, of our artifacts, the bones of the ancestors are supposed to be treated in a particular way. Many our early ancestors did normal burials as we know it as well. But there's a tradition, it still exists in Haiti and it still exists here, although it has been driven underground, where the bones of the ancestors are collected after interment and properly cleaned and treated in a particular way to be placed in our temples, etc. And we're being deprived of the opportunity to honor these ancestral remains the right and proper way. So repatriation, in terms of suggestions to start off repealing the Obeah Act. If you know any good local lawyers, we know lawyers, but of course these people, they don't work for free. So cases can be brought. Edward Siaga was very smart in his reconstruction of the Constitution. So once upon a time, if a constitutional case was brought against a particular act of the Parliament to say that it's unconstitutional, once the Supreme Court rules that it's unconstitutional, then it's the law's unconstitutionality applied to all people in Jamaica. Edward Siaga changed that so that it is only applicable to the applicant, right? So if you go now and challenge a particular act's constitutionality, the ruling is only applicable to you who applied for that. So it would at least send a message, because there have been no real constitutional challenges of the Obeah Act. And I stand ready as a practitioner to give myself to the challenging of this act, because it is not just how the act has affected you, but how you may deem that the act may affect you. So I feel that if a properly constructed case was brought against the Obeah Act, then it would be the catalyst, the push to get it totally abolished. In 2019, Justice Minister Delroy Chuck, as well as even Tom Tavares Finson, came out and said, we are going to repeal this ridiculous act. The church came out, and even church leaders came out and said, we will not allow this. We pray against the parliament. We pray that a holy fire will come and consume the parliament and burn up the politicians in their beds. These things are recorded in the newspapers. This is terrorism. These are acts of terrorism that the Christian church was allowed to carry out. Seditious conversations, seditious statements, treasonous statements were allowed to just go on ahead because of the freedom of religion. But we are not afforded the same freedom of religion. If we were to come out and say, we are going to work science and Obeah and the parliament, police would quickly come to us, and any kind of hope for the repeal of this oppressive law would be thrown out. So what we're saying is, yes, we can do crowdfunding for legal fees. Do we know any lawyers that are willing? Yes, we know. Even Bert Samuels, I'm sure, would be willing to do it. I am certain that even Dion Jackson Miller, who is a lawyer, may be ready to stand up against such a thing if we were. There are lawyers that are willing to do it. We can find them. It's not impossible. I know that if we were to have a conversation with even Bert Samuels, he would be more than willing to do it. Right? Because I was on IRA FM speaking about the same issue, and he was on before me, and he made it clear that he was willing to challenge this unconstitutional act. So all we need is greater attention. All we need is resources to really get this done. People are there, people are willing.
All right, my battery is going, so we're gonna have to wrap up now. So I hope there were no more questions, and I hope your questions got answered, Zenzi. Thank you to everybody for tuning in tonight, all who stayed with us for this over 1 hour of a conversation about Obeah, right? Not a very popular topic, not a conversation that many are very bold enough to join in on. So thank you so much to everybody who was here. And thank you so much to Alex. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing as usual and for the work that you do. It's honorable. Give thanks. Give thanks for you.
And thank you for having me. Thank you for this opportunity. And I hope we can make a lot of nice content for this, to push it further.
Oh
Respect my
yes.
sister.
Yeah man, for sure. For
Yeah, man,
sure.
gratitude.
Give thanks
Peace
to.
and love. Yeah, man, peace and love, everyone. Take care.
Alright. Bye.